Title: Everyone welcomed the Mafia Boss's new bodyguard. Then the blind hostess stepped on his silent boots. Everyone in Bellandi's welcomed the Mafia Boss's new bodyguard. Elena Rossi heard him cross the restaurant without making a sound. The family guards wore hard leather shoes with 2 brass tacks in every heel. Their footsteps announced them before their shadows reached Rafael Bellandi's chair, because no armed man was permitted to approach the boss unseen or unheard. This man wore silent rubber soles. He moved behind Rafael while the Sunday supper applauded his introduction. Elena left the hostess stand, counted 6 tables and 3 turns, then planted her sensible black shoe on the bodyguard's boot. The applause stopped. "Do not turn your back on him," she said. The stranger tried to pull away, and Elena pressed harder. Someone near the bar laughed. The blind hostess thinks she caught a threat. Elena lifted her chin toward Rafael's chair. "No," she said. "I caught the only man in this room who was trying not to be heard." Chapter 1. Bellandi's was not the kind of restaurant that appeared in travel magazines. The red booths had been repaired so often that 3 shades of vinyl ran along the seams. The pressed tin ceiling showed a brown water stain above table 9, and the brass espresso machine hissed like an irritated ant whenever the kitchen overloaded it. People came because Rosa Marino made Sunday gravy the way their grandmothers remembered it. They also came because the waitresses knew which widowers needed conversation, while nobody asked why 2 black SUVs remained at the curb. They also came because the restaurant belonged to Rafael Bellandi. At 42, Rafael controlled the Bellandi family, 3 dock unions, 6 clubs, and enough men with disciplined faces to make city officials return his calls. He did not advertise the nature of his power, but his black 3-piece suit, heavy signet ring, and silent bodyguards made explanations unnecessary. Elena had worked at his restaurant for 4 years. She had been blind for 12 years, long enough to distrust easy assumptions. Neither fact made her foolish, fragile, or grateful for ordinary respect. The stranger's balance shifted beneath her foot. He was larger than she was, and he could have thrown her aside. Doing so, however, would admit that a woman in a plain green dress had trapped him before 40 witnesses. "Miss Rossi," Rafael said, his controlled voice carrying across every suddenly silent table. His voice came from 7 feet to her right, low and controlled, and Elena knew its direction because everyone else had stopped breathing around it. "His right boot has no heel tacks," she said. The stranger made a dismissive sound. "I was issued tactical footwear. Not for the inner dining room, where every guard must announce his approach. Security changed the rule before my transfer was approved this morning." Then Mr. Bianchi would have complained for an hour and made everyone listen. A chair scraped near the kitchen door. Carlo Bianchi had guarded the restaurant entrance before arthritis bent his hands. He now spent Sundays at table 3, where Rosa gave him free coffee and pretended not to notice when he added grappa from a silver flask. "Damn right I would," Carlo called from his usual table beside the kitchen. Several diners laughed, but tension remained beneath the sound. The stranger pulled again, and Elena moved with him, keeping her heel across the broad toe of his boot. She had learned balance in a mobility gym where instructors knocked canes from students' hands and taught them that panic wasted information. The man was strong, but he was trying to avoid making a scene. That told her more than strength would have. "What is your name, and who assigned you to my dining room?" Rafael asked him. "Gavin Rusk, transferred from the river crew this morning." "Who cleared your transfer and authorized those silent boots?" "Mr. Valenti cleared everything before I arrived for the supper." The answer arrived too quickly, polished before Rafael had finished asking. Sergio Valenti, Rafael's security chief, stood near the private dining room. Elena recognized him by the faint medicinal smell of his hair tonic and by the measured click of handmade shoes that cost more than her monthly rent. "I approved him this morning," Sergio said. "His transfer file came from the river crew." Elena felt Rafael's attention shift from suspicion toward careful calculation. "Nico, come here and verify this man's assignment," he said. A familiar pair of hard heels crossed the floor. 2 brass notes struck after every step, the second slightly sharper because Nico Ferrante had replaced 1 tack last Tuesday. "Hands where I can see them," Nico told the stranger. "This is ridiculous," Gavin said. "She cannot even see what I am doing." Elena smiled without warmth, then said, "You keep saying that as if it helps you." Nico stopped close enough for his coat sleeve to brush the air beside her. "Elena, step back. Ask him the kitchen challenge before anyone removes me from this spot." Sergio exhaled. "We do not discuss procedures in front of civilians." "Then you should not have brought an unverified man through a civilian dining room." Rosa Marino muttered something approving from the service counter. Rafael said, ask him exactly what she told you to ask. Nico's tone changed from protective to formal. What does the red door serve after midnight? Gavin paused while the entire dining room waited for the familiar answer. Only half a second, but Elena had spent years measuring rooms by the distance between sounds. Half a second could hold an entire lie. Wine, because the red door leads directly to the cellar, he answered. Nico caught his arm before the false guard could step away. The red door served coffee after midnight. Wine moved through the blue cellar entrance because Rosa refused to let delivery crates scrape her painted wall. Gavin twisted once with sudden force. Elena removed her foot and stepped back before the struggle reached her. Another guard crossed from the bar, brass heels striking fast, and together the men pinned Gavin's arms without overturning a single table. Rafael rose with the controlled speed that made armed men reconsider movement. The change in the restaurant was immediate, and he did not shout, reach beneath his coat, or threaten anyone. He simply stood, buttoned his black jacket, and looked toward Sergio. Close the side doors without disturbing anyone outside this dining room, he said. Metal locks turned in sequence. The diners remained seated, suddenly aware that the comforting neighborhood restaurant had become the center of a mafia security breach. Gavin stopped struggling, although tension remained locked across his broad shoulders. Search him now and remove every device he carried inside, Sergio ordered. Not yet, because questioning him first will warn whoever signed him in, Elena said. Every person near her went still again. Sergio's voice sharpened. Miss Rossi, you have done enough. No. If you question him first, whoever signed him in gets time to clean the record. Silence moved through the dining room until even the kitchen became still. Elena heard Nico's grip tighten against Gavin's coat, and she heard Rosa set down a ladle. She heard one of the wealthy guests whisper that a hostess had no place telling Rafael Bellandi how to handle his security. Then Rafael asked, what would you check? He did not ask Sergio. He asked her. The coat desk log, Elena said. The side entrance ticket roll. The staff clock beside the pantry. If he came through the front, I would have greeted him. If he came through the side, someone gave him a number. I brought him through the private entrance, Sergio said. Then why does he smell like the coat room? The stranger went rigid because cedar oil had betrayed his route. Elena had noticed cedar oil when he passed her station, the same oil Rosa used inside the old walnut closet. It clung to winter wool, not to men entering from the alley in June. Rafael walked toward her while every seated guest tracked his approach. His shoes were quieter than the guards, but not silent, and Italian leather met old tile with patient, confident steps. He stopped an arm's length away. Show me, he said. Not take me, and not lead me. Show me. Elena turned toward the hostess stand. Nico, keep him where I can hear him. For the first time that evening, Rafael Bellandi almost laughed. Chapter 2. Elena navigated the restaurant without counting aloud. She knew the floor by pressure and echo. Table 6 had a slight rise, the carpet concealed a cracked tile, and open space breathed differently before the coat desk. Her white cane remained folded beneath the stand during service because the dining room had fixed furniture and predictable routes, but she carried a short tactile pencil behind one ear. She pulled it free and opened the coat log. The book used thick pages divided by raised lines. Elena had designed the system herself after 2 drunk councilmen took the wrong cashmere coats and accused the staff of theft. Each handwritten entry also received one of 12 embossed marks, allowing her to track the ticket by touch. What number did you give him? She asked Sergio. He did not check a coat when I brought him through the private entrance. That was not my question, and you know exactly what I asked. I gave him no coat number because he carried nothing with him. Elena ran her finger down the latest entries. 41. 42. 43. Then 47. 4 spaces had been skipped. Someone removed tickets 44 through 46, she said. Sergio stepped closer. His expensive heel struck clean, even notes. Tickets tear. Rolls are imperfect. Not this roll, because I checked every edge before loading it. How could you possibly know what happened to a printed ticket? The question was careless, revealing the assumption beneath Sergio's polished manners. Rosa made an angry sound, but Elena raised one hand before her friend could answer. She preferred to cut her own meat. Because I loaded it at 4 o'clock, Elena said. I ran my thumb along every edge, and Rosa complained that I was taking too long. You were taking too long, but apparently you had a reason, Rosa called. Thank you for confirming the useful half of my statement. Still love you, even when you use me as supporting evidence. Warm laughter flickered around the room, releasing just enough tension for people to breathe. Elena found ticket 47 clipped beneath the counter and rubbed its lower edge. The lower edge felt completely smooth beneath Elena's searching thumb. Her tickets were not smooth, and she nicked the lower left corner of every 10th number so she could estimate position without reading. She held the ticket toward Rafael, then said, "This did not come from my roll." Rafael took it, careful not to touch her fingers. "Different paper? It has the same weight, but someone cut the wrong edge." He passed it to Nico. "Compare it with the ticket roll before anyone touches the office stock." Sergio said, "We are trusting a security decision to the hostess's fingertips now." Rafael turned toward him, then said, "We are trusting evidence to the person who knows it." The words were quiet, yet they crossed the restaurant with more force than a shout. Something shifted beneath Elena's ribs, and she did not mistake it for rescue. Rafael had not defended her because she was blind or because he wanted to appear kind before his guests. He had assigned authority to competence, which was rarer and therefore more dangerous to her heart. Nico tore another ticket from the roll and placed both on the counter. "The new one has the notch," he said. "Check the fibers against the private office stationery," Elena replied. Sergio's shoe stopped moving, and the sudden stillness exposed his attention. Nico inhaled. "Boss. Do it now, and keep the result inside this restaurant." The restaurant remained closed for 23 minutes. During that time, the diners received fresh coffee and strict instructions to stay seated. Gavin Rusk was taken into the pantry under guard. Nico discovered that the counterfeit coat ticket had been cut from cream stock used in Rafael's private office. A second guard found a tiny listening device inside the tongue of Gavin's left boot. The device was no larger than a shirt button, and it was also warm. It had been transmitting while families ate dinner only a few feet away. Sergio blamed an office clerk, then the river crew, then a supplier who delivered uniforms. Each explanation arrived polished, reasonable, and slightly too complete. Elena listened from behind her hostess stand, separating explanations from nervous breathing. Rafael asked few questions, but the restaurant changed around every one, and when he spoke to Gavin, he did not threaten. He asked who had issued the boots, and Gavin gave a warehouse name that had closed 2 years earlier. When Rafael spoke to Sergio, he asked why the brass heel rule had not appeared in the new man's transfer file. Sergio answered that old customs could not govern modern security, and Carlo Bianchi slapped one palm against table 3. "That custom kept your boss's father alive when polished badges failed him." Rafael's jaw tightened, and Elena heard it in the way his next breath stopped short. The brass heel rule had begun 30 years ago, after Rafael's father survived an attack inside another family restaurant. The attacker had dressed as a guard and approached through a crowded room. Afterward, Carlo placed brass tacks in every inner guard's shoes, creating a warning that could not be forged with a jacket or badge. Rafael had been 14 that night, and he had been sitting 3 chairs away. People in the neighborhood knew the public version, and Elena knew only that the story made him despise surprise, hesitation, and anyone standing behind him. She also knew Sergio had just dismissed the rule that protected Rafael as a boy. "Open for business, but record the name of everyone who leaves," Rafael said at last. The side doors unlocked, releasing the pressure that had trapped every conversation. Guests began talking at once, their voices rising in excited waves, and wealthy relatives told one another they had suspected Gavin from the beginning. Captains who had applauded his introduction now criticized the cut of his coat. A councilman's wife claimed she had noticed his unfriendly eyes. Elena returned to seating guests, and nobody apologized for laughing. She did not expect them to. A man in a blue dinner jacket stopped beside her station before leaving. "That was quite a performance." "It was my job." Hostesses do not usually expose spies. Bodyguards do not usually applaud them. He walked away without answering because her reply had left him none. Rosa came around the counter and pressed a warm cup into Elena's hand. "Chamomile. Before you turn one of our good plates into a weapon. I would use a tray. You would calculate the replacement cost first." "Obviously." Rosa kissed her temple. She had hired Elena when 3 other restaurants had explained, with elaborate concern, that crowded dining rooms were too unpredictable for a blind employee. Rosa had asked Elena to memorize the floor plan, then moved 2 chairs and tested whether she noticed. Elena had noticed, and Rosa had hired her before lunch. "He is watching you," Rosa murmured. Elena did not ask who, since only one man's attention carried that weight. Rafael stood near the bar with Nico and his cousin Tomas, and the 3 men spoke too softly for her to hear words, but Rafael's attention had weight. It rested on Elena whenever she crossed the front room, then lifted before she could call him rude. She finished seating a family of 5. When she returned to the stand, a pair of patient leather shoes waited on the other side. Miss Rossi, Rafael said. Mr. Bellandi. You were right. Yes. His pause carried surprise because certainty sounded unusual from women he employed. Most people expected a woman in her position to soften certainty into gratitude. Elena had learned that false modesty only made other people comfortable while stealing credit from the woman who earned it. Rafael recovered. You may be the first person who has answered me that way in years. Then your employees are either frightened or underpaid. Some or both. That was not a joke. Neither was my answer. The bar had quieted around them, and Rafael lowered his voice. I want you to review every route through this restaurant. As a witness? As the person who heard what my security chief missed. That is consultant work. Name your fee. Elena folded her hands over the reservation book. Written scope. Written rate. Rosa approves any changes that affect her staff. Nobody follows me home, nobody removes me from my shifts for my own protection, and nobody calls me brave when they mean useful. Rafael said nothing for several seconds, and she wondered whether she had pushed too far. Then he asked, do you negotiate every offer before accepting it? Only the ones made by dangerous men. And how do you classify me? As a man whose restaurant contains a locked pantry with a stranger inside. That time, Rafael did laugh, and the warm sound surprised them both. The sound was brief and low, but it changed his whole presence, and Elena had heard him amused before, usually when a captain made a cutting remark. She had never heard laughter escape him as if it had surprised its owner. Tomas will write the contract, he said. My lawyer will read it. You have a lawyer? I have a cousin who passed the bar and enjoys correcting rich men. I already dislike him. Her. Rafael's amusement deepened. Even better. Chapter 3. The restaurant closed at 1 in the morning. By 1:15, the last wineglass had been washed, the kitchen floor had been mopped, and Rosa had sent everyone home except Elena, Rafael, Nico, and Tomas Bellandi. Tomas was Rafael's cousin and legal advisor, a lean man whose expensive suit never quite concealed the neighborhood boy beneath it. He read Elena's consultation terms aloud while she followed an accessible copy on her phone. She changed 4 clauses, and Rafael objected to 2. They settled on 3 clauses that protected both authority and independence. You enjoy this, Rafael said when she insisted that the contract protect hourly employees from retaliation. I enjoy hearing powerful men discover verbs like shall and must. Tomas coughed into his hand, badly hiding a laugh, and Rafael signed. Elena activated the restaurant's empty room survey. During service, Bellandi's produced hundreds of overlapping sounds, and in an empty room, each surface revealed itself. She tapped her cane near the front booths, the bar, and the narrow corridor leading to Rafael's private dining room. Rafael followed 2 steps behind, while Nico remained farther back. You keep changing your pace, Elena said. I am matching yours. No. You are trying to step between my cane and every chair. His silence admitted the habit before his pride could invent an excuse. Stop protecting me from furniture. I watched you walk into a table last month. Rosa moved it. The table did not apologize. Neither did Rosa. From the kitchen, Rosa shouted, I apologized with cannoli. Elena smiled. That counts. They reached the side corridor where every altered sound became more obvious. She asked Nico to walk from the rear entrance to the private dining room. His brass heels produced 2 clean notes with each step, and near the pantry, the second note disappeared. Again, Elena said. Nico repeated the route, and the sound vanished in the same place. Elena crouched and swept her hand above the floor until she found the edge of a rubber service mat. Someone had moved it 6 feet from the dish station and placed it across the corridor. The rubber created enough silence for a person to approach the private room unheard. Who moved this? Rafael asked. Kitchen staff would not, Elena said. It blocks the cartwheels. Rosa confirmed it had been beside the sink at midnight. Nico rolled the mat back. A thin scratch ran across the tile beneath it, fresh enough that Elena could feel grit along the edge. A metal case crossed here, she said. Listening equipment? Tomas asked. Maybe. Or a service cart with 1 damaged wheel. Do not make the evidence more exciting than it is. Rafael stood close beside her, then said, You correct everyone. Only when they are wrong. That sounds exhausting. You have no idea. His coat moved as he crouched. The air changed near her shoulder, carrying cedar, espresso, and a restrained masculine scent that did not come from a bottle. He reached toward the scratch, then stopped. Where? Elena placed 2 fingers against the tile. Here. Instead of covering her hand, he touched the floor beside it, and that small choice should not have mattered. It did. Men often grabbed her elbow without warning, steered her around obstacles she had already mapped, or took objects from her hands because assistance made them feel generous. Rafael Bellandi, who controlled rooms by occupying them, waited for information rather than taking control of her body. The scratch runs toward the coat room, he said. Yes. Gavin may have entered through there. Or someone wanted him to. Rafael rose. Sergio. I did not say that. You thought it. I thought several names. Yours was one. Nico made a choking sound. Rafael faced her, and his presence became colder, but Elena did not step back. Mine? It is your restaurant. Your office paper made the false ticket. Your security system accepted the wrong man. Either you were involved or you trusted someone who was. Tomas stopped typing, leaving the small office suddenly free of mechanical noise. Rafael's answer came slowly. Nobody speaks to me that way. That explains why your mistakes have such good table manners. The cold held for one breath, and then it broke. Continue, he said. Elena did. They found a second altered route near the kitchen, where a brass kick plate had been removed from a swinging door. Without it, the door closed quietly, and they found a new hook beneath the coat counter, positioned to hold a transmitter bag. They also found a duplicate staff schedule in Sergio's office, listing 2 waiters who had not worked at Bellandi's in months. At 3 in the morning, Elena sat at table 9 with sore feet and a cup of coffee she no longer wanted. Rafael remained standing. Sit down, she said. I am not tired. Your right knee disagrees. He became still. How would you know? You have been shifting weight every 40 seconds since the side corridor. You count too much. You notice too little. He pulled out the opposite chair. The movement sounded careful, almost reluctant, and Rafael sat with his back to the wall and his face toward every entrance. Even after the restaurant had been swept twice, he positioned himself where nobody could approach unseen. Elena wrapped both hands around her coffee. You were 14, she said. His breath changed. Carlo told me the public version years ago. Your father survived because a guard's heel clicked behind him. My father survived because Carlo took the first strike. You were there. 3 chairs away. The words landed flat, polished by repetition and never made lighter, and Elena waited. Rafael filled the silence because she did not rush to comfort him. My father had told me to move when the stranger entered. I hesitated because I could not tell whether he meant the kitchen or the street. Afterward, he said hesitation would get everyone I loved buried. You were 14. He was not interested in my age. Are you? Rafael leaned back, and leather creaked beneath him. What does that mean? Do you still punish that boy every time you refuse to pause? The question stayed between them. Elena expected anger. She could handle anger, especially when it belonged to a man who had paid for the right to hear her honest assessment. Rafael offered something more difficult. Yes, he said. Chapter 4. 2 days later, Elena's contract began. She worked breakfast service from 8 until noon, rested for an hour, then reviewed security routes with Nico. Rafael did not assign a guard to follow her home, although she later learned that he had placed an unmarked car 3 blocks away. She called him at midnight, then said, You agreed nobody would follow me. Nobody followed you. A black sedan has parked beside DeLuca Pharmacy for 3 nights. The engine idles at 11:05 and leaves after my apartment light turns on. That could be anyone. The driver wears the same cedar cologne as your garage. Silence. You smelled that from 3 blocks away? He asked. No. I bought toothpaste and walked past his open window. Another silence, this one irritated. Call the car back, she said. There was a breach. At your restaurant. Connected to you now. You do not get to turn respect into surveillance. His voice lowered. What if they approach you? Then I call Nico. Or the police. Or Rosa, who is more frightening than both. Elena. It was the first time he used her given name. The intimacy of it moved through her more quickly than it should have, but she refused to let attraction negotiate her boundaries. Rafael. His breath caught. Call the car back. He did. The next afternoon, he arrived at Bellandi's without warning. 2 guards entered first, their brass heels sounding clearly across the tile, and Rafael followed in a black suit without his overcoat. He approached the hostess stand. You were right, he said. Again. Do not become unbearable. Too late. He placed a small paper bag on the counter, and Elena smelled orange peel and dark chocolate. Rosa said you skip lunch when you work on schedules. Is this an apology? It is food. Those are different things. I recalled the car. That was compliance with the contract. He considered her answer. I apologize for treating your safety as permission to ignore your choice. Elena did not speak immediately. Rafael Bellandi could have bought the restaurant, the building, and every store on the block before sunset. He could command men to stand in rain for hours and make captains wait outside his door. Yet he had come to the Hostess stand in daylight and offered an apology without an audience. Accepted, she said. The chocolate is still not an apology. Then what is it? A separate good decision. His smile arrived slowly. It was not the public amusement she had heard after their first negotiation. This expression belonged only to the space between them, and Elena knew it before she could explain how. That was the first irreversible change, but not because he brought food. Because he had listened when she said no, corrected his behavior, and returned without demanding gratitude. Later that evening, a summer storm emptied the restaurant early. Rain struck the front windows in long silver sheets, while thunder rolled above the neighborhood rooftops. Rosa sent the kitchen staff home before the streets flooded. Nico left to question the office clerk who had access to Rafael's stationery, and Tomas carried a box of copied schedules to the family archive. Elena remained to finish her route map, and Rafael remained because she did. At 10:30, the power flickered. The dining room lights went out for 6 seconds, returned, then dimmed again. Rafael crossed the room immediately, his shoes faster than usual. Emergency lights are active, Elena said. I know. Your heartbeat disagrees. He stopped beside table 4. The old ambush had happened during a blackout, and Carlo had mentioned that detail once and then apologized for saying too much. Elena folded her map. The room did not change. People use darkness. So do you. What? You stand in it and assume everyone else is less capable. Thunder shook the windows, and Raphael's breathing remained too controlled, each inhale measured as if he could command his body to forget. Elena rose, then said, "Come to the Hostess stand." Why? Because I want to show you something. He followed. At the center of the empty dining room, she unfolded her cane and placed its tip against the tile. Close your eyes. No. Then we are done. Elena, I do not close my eyes in unsecured rooms. Nico cleared it. Your guards are outside both doors, and their brass heels are loud enough to wake the dead. That is not the point. It is exactly the point. You trust security only when you control every part of it. I am asking you to experience the room without pretending control is the same as knowledge. The lights flickered again, and Raphael said nothing. Elena heard the faint movement of his jacket as his shoulders lowered. They are closed, he said. She smiled. You sound offended. I am. Good. Listen. Rain ticked against the western windows, and the espresso machine released a soft cooling sigh behind the bar. Water moved through a gutter outside the kitchen wall, and one loose spoon vibrated in a metal cup near the service station. What do you hear? Elena asked. Rain. That is one thing. The machine. 2. A spoon. 3. He paused, then said, your cane moved. 4. A guard outside the front door shifted his left foot. Nico. He favors that ankle after midnight. Raphael's voice changed. You know all of them by their steps. Most people announce themselves long before they speak. She walked around him once, tapping the cane lightly, and Raphael tracked her by turning his head. Do not follow me, she said. You are circling. I know where I am. That makes one of us. Now you are learning. Elena stopped behind his right shoulder, and his body tightened immediately. She did not touch him, then said, this is where Gavin stood. Yes. What do you hear now? You. Not enough. He listened. The storm softened for a moment, revealing the refrigerator motor beneath it. Rosa's clock marked the seconds while a bus passed at the corner. Outside stood Raphael's guards, and beside him breathed Elena. There are 7 stable sounds, he said. And 1 unstable. He waited, and then his head turned toward the side corridor. The pantry door. Its old hinge made a faint intermittent scrape as air pressure moved it. Exactly. Elena stepped beside him. Open your eyes. He did not. Not yet, Raphael said. The request was so quiet that it changed the air between them. For a man who believed every pause was weakness, remaining blind by choice was more intimate than removing his jacket. All right, she said. They stood together while rain moved around the restaurant, and after a minute, Raphael lifted one hand, then stopped before reaching her. May I? Where? Your hand. Elena placed her palm upward. His fingers settled against hers with extraordinary care. They were warm, calloused along the thumb, and much less steady than she expected. He did not pull her closer or use contact to guide her. He simply held her hand as if he were learning its shape through patience. "You only listen when danger speaks," she said. His thumb moved once across her knuckles. "Then teach me how to listen when you do." Elena's throat tightened. She could have made a joke, and humor had protected her from pity, assumptions, and men who mistook interest for entitlement. Instead, she answered honestly. "I can teach you to listen. What you do with it is your choice." "No," Rafael said. "What I do with it is my responsibility." He opened his eyes. She could not see his expression, but she felt his attention settle on her face with an intensity that made the darkened restaurant seem smaller. "Elena." "Yes? When this investigation ends, may I ask you to dinner?" Her pulse stumbled. "You may ask." That was not an answer. "You have not asked yet." His quiet laugh brushed her skin. "You are going to make me wait. Consider it practice." Chapter 5. The accusation arrived at breakfast. Elena had just seated an elderly couple near the window when Sergio Valenti entered with Tomas and 2 family captains. Nobody wore a coat, yet Sergio carried coat ticket 45 between gloved fingers. "We found this in Miss Rossi's desk," he said. Rosa stopped slicing bread. Elena remained behind the hostess stand. "Which desk?" "The small desk inside the office beside Rafael's private file cabinet. I do not use that desk, and everyone working here knows it. Your signed consultation papers were found inside the top drawer. Tomas put them there after we finished reviewing the contract." Tomas spoke from Sergio's left. "I did." Sergio set the ticket on the counter. "It matches the missing sequence from Sunday. Her fingerprints are on the drawer. I opened it yesterday after you told me to review the office route. Convenient enough to sound rehearsed before anyone checked the facts." Rosa came around the service counter with a bread knife still in one hand. "Put that knife down before you turn breakfast into a second investigation," Elena said. "I am slicing bread, although someone has clearly moved the loaf. You are 6 feet from the bread. Then someone moved it 6 feet away while you were glaring at Sergio." Elena almost smiled, but Sergio's confidence deserved attention. Rafael entered from the private dining room. He had removed his jacket and rolled his white shirt sleeves to the forearms, revealing a dark watch and old scars near one wrist. 2 bodyguards followed, their heels announcing them. He stopped beside Elena rather than in front of her. "Tell me what was found," he said. Sergio repeated the accusation. Rafael did not interrupt or dismiss him, and Elena appreciated that. Believing her without evidence would have been another form of condescension, a romantic performance instead of respect for the system she had demanded. When Sergio finished, Rafael asked Elena, "Do you want the room cleared?" "No." "Do you want your counsel present before anyone continues questioning you?" "My cousin is already on her way, and she enjoys difficult mornings." Sergio scoffed. "This is not a court." "Then stop presenting fingerprints as if you are a prosecutor." Elena reached for the ticket, and Sergio pulled it back. "Do not contaminate that ticket before my security team records the evidence. You said my fingerprints are already on the drawer, not the ticket. The evidence stays with security until Rafael decides who may examine it." Rafael held out his hand. "Give it to her." Sergio hesitated, and that hesitation lasted longer than Gavin's had. Rafael's voice lost all warmth. "Give Elena the ticket now, before I ask twice." The paper crossed the counter, and Elena rubbed the top edge, then the bottom left corner. It carried a notch. At first, disappointment struck her because the mark matched her system. Anyone touching it casually would believe it came from her original roll. Then she turned the ticket over. "Rosa, bring me the pastry wheel." "The fluted one?" "Yes." Rosa set the small metal cutter in Elena's hand, and Elena pressed one finger carefully along its scalloped edge, then traced the notch on ticket 45. "This was not made with my pencil knife," she said. Sergio left. "A notch is a notch. Mine are straight cuts, 3 millimeters deep. This one curves at the bottom because someone used the pastry wheel." Rosa swore in Italian. Elena continued before anger took over the room. "The wheel lives in the office kitchenette because Tomas eats pie during late meetings. Whoever made this copy had access to Rafael's stationery, the office drawer, and that kitchenette." Tomas cleared his throat. "For the record, I do not eat pie during every meeting. Only the ones where you lie about having dinner." One of the captains laughed, and Sergio did not. "A curved cut proves nothing," he said. "It proves I did not make the ticket. Someone could have copied your system." "Yes. Someone did." Elena placed the ticket flat on the counter. Now ask why they chose 45. Rafael leaned closer. Why? Because 44 and 46 are still missing. The person who planted this expects us to stop looking once we find one answer. Sergio turned toward Rafael. She is manufacturing complications to hide her access. No, Elena said. I am making your simple story work for its living. Rafael's hand rested on the counter near hers, and he did not touch her. Continue, he said. The fake guard carried ticket 47, cut from your office stock. Ticket 45 was planted in a drawer after I entered that room. The person framing me needs security authority, access to the office, and knowledge of my tactile system. Half the staff knew about your notches, Sergio replied. Half the staff knew I made them. Only someone watching closely knew where. Elena turned her face toward the front door, then said, Nico, your left shoe is wrong. Nico, who had been standing near the entrance, looked down. What? Your second tack is dull. He crossed the tile twice, and the left heel produced a muted scrape instead of its usual bright note. It was fine last night, Elena said. Nico removed the shoe and examined it. One tack has been filed flat. Rafael's attention sharpened. Why? To make his gait easier to imitate, Elena answered. Sergio shifted one foot, and Elena heard it. She also heard Rafael hear her hearing it. Nobody leaves the restaurant, he said. Sergio's breath quickened. You are locking down the family because a hostess heard a bad shoe. I am pausing because my consultant found altered security equipment. You are letting her humiliate your men. Rafael stepped between Sergio and the counter, then said, Her name is Elena. The room held still. You will use it, Rafael continued, especially while accusing her with evidence she just disproved. Elena felt the force of his choice, but she also felt the danger of letting his authority become the conclusion. Do not end the inquiry for me, she said. Rafael turned, then said, I am not. Good. I want the shoe records, the office entry log, and every uniform order from the last 6 months. I also want Sergio's shoes. One captain coughed. Sergio said, Absolutely not. Elena smiled. Then we finally agree they matter. Chapter 6. By noon, the restaurant had become an investigation room with a lunch special. Rosa refused to close because 42 neighborhood workers had reservations, and she declared that no traitor deserved the power to ruin her baked ziti. Rafael accepted this decision after one argument and 2 threatening waves of her wooden spoon. Elena moved between ordinary service and extraordinary evidence. She greeted customers, found a booster seat for a toddler, corrected a delivery invoice, and listened while Nico tested every guard's shoes on the side corridor tile. Her competence did not appear suddenly because a powerful man had noticed her. It had always been there, carrying plates, solving seating disputes, and remembering which customer needed the step-free entrance. Rafael began to understand that. He watched her solve a problem with table 12, where 2 families had been booked for the same time. She apologized without surrendering the restaurant's dignity, moved one party to the private alcove, and sent complimentary garlic knots before anyone raised a voice. You do that every day, he said afterward. Prevent wars over carbohydrates? Make people feel heard before they become dangerous. That is most of hospitality. It is most of leadership. Elena angled her face toward him. Do not recruit me into organized crime. I was considering the city council. That is organized crime with worse food. Rafael laughed, and 3 nearby employees turned in surprise. His attention to her had become impossible to mistake, and he did not hover or issue gifts disguised as orders. He simply appeared near the hostess stand more often, asked what she thought before meetings, and remembered every limit she set. At 2:30, Elena's cousin arrived. Elena Rossi was a legal aid attorney with a sharp voice and heels that struck the floor like punctuation. She reviewed the planted ticket, the consultation agreement, and Sergio's written accusation. You called my client a security liability, Camilla said. Sergio crossed his arms. She is. Excellent. Put that in writing beneath your signature. He declined, and Camilla stayed. The shoe records revealed that Sergio had ordered a new set of indoor footwear 2 weeks earlier. He claimed the brass heel tacks damaged imported tile, although Bellandi's had used the same tile for 27 years. The order included 12 pairs of silent black boots. 10 pairs remained boxed in a warehouse, and Gavin had worn one. The 12th pair was missing. Sergio's shoes, Elena repeated. He refused again. Rafael did not command him to remove them. Instead, he asked Nico to cross the dining room before asking Sergio to follow the same route. Nico's brass heels announced his route. Sergio's expensive leather shoes clicked properly, but Elena heard a faint softness beneath the right step, as if another sole had been fitted inside. He is wearing inserts, she said. For my back, Sergio replied. Remove the right shoe. No. Rafael's voice became quiet. That was not a request from me. She has no authority over my body. Elena respected the argument even while disbelieving the man. He is right, she said. I cannot force him. Search the garage camera instead. If he changed shoes today, we will see what he wore when he arrived. Sergio relaxed too quickly, and the garage camera had failed at 7 that morning. So had the office hallway camera. Tomas placed both failure reports on the table. The same administrator cleared the error notices. Sergio's voice remained composed. My login is used by the entire security office. That is either a confession of guilt or incompetence, Camilla said. Which defense would you like recorded? Rafael looked at Sergio for a long time. You are suspended from operational control, he said. Nico takes command until this is resolved. Sergio knocked his chair against the floor as he stood, then asked, You would strip my authority because she stepped on a boot? Because every answer you give creates another reason not to trust you. Your father would never let service staff question captains. Rafael stood. Power changed shape around him. The warmth he had shown Elena disappeared, leaving the disciplined menace that had built and defended the Bellandi family. My father is dead, he said. His mistakes are not scripture. Sergio looked toward the captains, expecting support, and none came. He walked out under Nico's escort, his shoe clicks fading toward the street, and Elena listened until the front door closed. He wanted to be removed, she said. Rafael faced her. Why? Because suspension lets him leave without answering where the 12th pair went. Nico swore and ran for the door, and Sergio's car had already disappeared. At 4:15, Tomas found the second listening device. It was attached beneath table 9, where Rafael held private conversations after closing. Its battery had been removed, but a thin line of adhesive remained fresh around the edge. The device had captured weeks of discussions, and several recordings involved a truce supper scheduled for that evening. Rafael wanted to cancel, and Elena refused. They stood in the kitchen while rainwater from the previous storm dripped through a clogged gutter outside. Rosa kneaded bread at the preparation table, pretending not to listen. Sergio knows every exit, Rafael said. He knows the guest list and seating. Then canceling tells him we found the real purpose. I am not using a crowded restaurant as bait. Neither am I. You are proposing we continue the supper. With a different room, different staff route, and no private entrance. He may send men. Then meet somewhere else and lose the one advantage we have. Which is? Elena tapped her cane once against the tile, then said, I know how this building sounds. Rafael's answer came hard. No. The word struck deeper because of the night before. Elena set both hands on the steel table. You asked me to teach you how to listen. I did not ask you to stand inside an attack. This is not protection. This is control wearing a nicer suit. Rosa stopped kneading. Rafael lowered his voice. I will not gamble with you. You are not the one who decides whether I participate. I own the restaurant. Rosa runs the kitchen. I run the front door. Nico runs security now. You own the consequences if you ignore all three. The air went still. Rafael could have ended the argument by force, and he could have closed Bellandi's, ordered guards around Elena, or removed her from the building. Everyone in the kitchen knew it. Instead, he turned toward Rosa. Can the staff be cleared before the supper? Yes. He turned toward Nico, then asked, Can the guests enter through one controlled door? Yes. Then he faced Elena. What do you need? The question changed everything. She answered immediately. 6 brass service bells, flour from the kitchen, the old baby monitor Rosa uses for deliveries, and every loyal guard in hard-soled shoes. Rosa wiped her hands on her apron. Why flour? Silent boots still leave prints. Chapter 7. The truce supper began at 9. Bellandi's looked ordinary from the street. Warm light filled the windows, red sauce simmered in the kitchen, and black SUVs occupied the curb. Inside, however, every table had been moved according to Elena's map. The 6 visiting captains entered through the front door, and Elena greeted each man by name. None expected a blind hostess to know their voices before they introduced themselves. 2 sounded impressed, and 1 sounded uncomfortable. A 4th attempted to press money into her hand and told her to buy something pretty. Elena returned the bill, then said, Buy yourself better manners. Rafael heard her, and his smile was dangerous and private. The dining room arrangement placed every guest inside a clear sound corridor. Loyal guards stood at 4 fixed points, their brass heels establishing a steady perimeter whenever they moved. Fine kitchen flour covered the sealed side passage in a thin, nearly invisible layer. Each service door carried a small bell, not loud enough to disrupt dinner but distinct enough for Elena to identify. Rafael sat at the central table. He wore a black 3-piece suit, a white shirt, and no tie. His signet ring caught the pendant lights whenever he lifted his hand. Nico stood behind him, while Tomas managed the meeting papers. Elena remained at the hostess stand, and she hated waiting. Action felt cleaner than anticipation, yet her job was to listen until the building changed. The first course passed without incident, and at 9:20, the kitchen bell rang once. Rosa's agreed signal meant all staff were accounted for, and at 9:32, the rear service bell gave a thin double note. Nobody on Elena's team had touched that door, and she lifted one finger. Nico saw the signal and moved toward Rafael, and his brass heels crossed the dining room, telling Elena exactly where he was. Then another sound entered the corridor as soft rubber compressed against tile. One pair, and then a second. The intruders had entered through the old laundry passage, bypassing the bell at the main kitchen door. They moved slowly, believing silence made them invisible. Elena stepped away from the stand, and Rafael began to rise. "Stay seated," she said. Every visiting captain looked at her. One of them laughed. "Bellandi takes orders from the hostess now?" Rafael sat back down. "When she is right," he said. The laughter ended. Elena moved toward the service corridor, and her cane found the wall, then the first threshold. A soft sole shifted 20 feet ahead. "You are standing in flour," she called. Silence. "The next door locks from this side. If you run backward, Nico meets you. If you move forward, Rosa hits the alarm beside the freezer. Choose carefully." The first man rushed. Elena pulled the steel pass door shut and dropped its horizontal latch. A body struck the other side, but the kitchen-grade barrier held. Rosa slapped the alarm. It was not a police siren. The restaurant's ancient fire bell exploded through the building, loud enough to break concentration and destroy the intruder's greatest advantage. Loyal guards moved. Their brass heels rang across the tile in disciplined lines, while the silent boots stumbled on flour and collided behind the locked door. Nico led 2 men through the alley, cutting off retreat. Rafael reached Elena, and he did not grab her or drag her away. "Where?" he asked. She pointed. 2 behind the pass door. 1 more outside the coat room. "I hear only 2. The third holds his breath every time the fire bell stops." The bell paused between mechanical strikes, and in that narrow silence, fabric brushed the coat closet. Rafael turned. The third man stepped out wearing a waiter's jacket over black tactical trousers. He lifted both hands when 3 guards surrounded him. No gun appeared, and no fight broke through the dining room. Elena crossed to the closet, then said, "Check his right boot tongue." Nico did, and he found a transmitter and a folded seating chart. The chart marked each visiting captain, every loyal guard, and Rafael's place at the central table. Elena's name appeared beside the front door with 1 note. "Blind. Ignore." Nico read the words aloud. The visiting captains went silent. Elena held out her hand. "Give me the paper." She folded it once, slowly, then tore it through the word ignore. "That," she said, "was the mistake." Rafael looked at her with a pride so fierce that she felt it like sunlight. The captured men refused to speak until Nico placed the silent black boots on the dining table. Flour outlined the saws, and one heel contained a narrow compartment holding a key to the private office. Sergio had issued the key. He had also sent a recording to the visiting captains 10 minutes before the supper. In it, Rafael appeared to order the murder of 2 men attending the truce. Phones began vibrating around the table, and trust collapsed faster than security. One captain stood. "You invited us here after ordering our deaths?" Another pushed back his chair. Rafael's men shifted as brass heels struck the floor. The visiting guards answered by moving toward their bosses. The room approached violence 1 inch at a time. Elena climbed onto the low platform near the bar and struck a spoon against a water glass. The clear note cut through every voice. "Play the recording," she said. The first captain stared at her. "This does not concern you. It was made in my restaurant. That makes it my concern." Rafael said, "Play it." Tomas connected a phone to the dining room speaker, and Rafael's recorded voice filled Bellandi's. The sound was convincing. It named both captains and said they would not leave the building alive. Chairs scraped, and men muttered. Rosa came out of the kitchen holding no weapon, only a flour-covered towel. Elena listened, and the recording played again. On the third repetition, she heard it. Stop after the first name. Tomas paused, then said, play the 5 seconds before it. He did, and a faint metallic vibration sounded beneath Rafael's voice. That is Rosa's order wheel, Elena said. It turns beside the kitchen pass. Rosa nodded, though Elena could hear uncertainty. Now play the 5 seconds before the second name. The speaker produced Rafael's voice again, and this time, a clock ticked in the background. That is not the same room, Elena said. The second line came from Rafael's office. The first came from table 9. One captain frowned. You can prove that? The order wheel vibrates at 120 cycles. It has since Rosa refused to replace the motor. Rafael's office clock strikes every half minute because Tomas bought a defective antique and will not admit it. Tomas looked offended. It has historical value. It loses 11 minutes a week. History is not punctual. Nobody laughed. Elena continued. The recording was assembled from at least 3 conversations. Listen beneath the word alive. Tomas replayed it, and there was a tiny click. That is Gavin's transmitter activating after someone pressed the boot tongue, Elena said. The person who edited this used material recorded on Sunday and material from the office. Rafael remained seated, and he could have demanded belief. Instead, he asked Elena, what else? She listened again. The first phrase contained 6 background sounds, and the second contained 5. The third repeated the same chair scrape as the first, identical in length and pitch. That chair moved twice in exactly the same way, she said. Real rooms do not repeat themselves perfectly. Tomas isolated the sound and played both sections, and they matched. The visiting captains began sitting down. One man still looked doubtful. A talented editor can make anyone say anything. How do we know Bellandi did not order the edit? Elena stepped off the platform, then said, because the editor erased the brass heels. She asked Tomas to increase the lowest frequencies, and beneath Rafael's voice, a soft pattern appeared, 4 steps, pause, 2 steps. Silent rubber soles. Sergio wore the missing pair, Elena said. He entered both rooms without the security sound and collected the pieces he needed. Nico placed a tablet on the table after the restored garage backup loaded from an offsite server. It showed Sergio arriving that morning in black tactical boots, changing into dress shoes beside his car, and carrying a pastry wheel wrapped in a napkin. The accusation against Elena collapsed, and so did Sergio's plan. Rafael stood. The truce remains, he said. The men who entered this restaurant will answer for it. Sergio Valenti will answer for betraying my house, but nobody at this table will be harmed under my roof. The oldest visiting captain looked toward Elena. And the hostess? Rafael found Elena across the room, then said, she decides her own place. It was the only answer she would have accepted. Chapter 8. Sergio was found before dawn at a private garage across the river. Rafael did not tell Elena the details of his capture, and she did not ask. By breakfast, Nico had recovered the missing 12th pair of boots, 3 copied keys, and a box of listening equipment. The family removed Sergio from every position he had used to sell access. Bellandi's opened at 8, and Rosa served eggs. Neighborhood regulars arrived unaware that a truce had nearly broken beneath the pressed tin ceiling. Elena greeted them with a voice made rough by exhaustion, while Rafael sat at table 9 and drank coffee without sugar. At 10, he approached the hostess stand. You have not slept, Elena said. Neither have you. I work here. I own it. That is not a job description. He placed 2 brass heel tacks on the counter. Elena touched them with one finger, then asked, from Sergio's boots? From the pair he should have worn. Keep them as evidence. The case is settled inside the family. That sentence has a very mafia meaning. It does. Rafael's tone carried no apology for what he was. He remained a dangerous man with power built outside ordinary law. Elena did not need him turned into a harmless executive. She needed him honest about the darkness and disciplined in how he brought it near her. I asked you to dinner, he said. No. You asked whether you might ask. You remember every unfair detail. It is one of my charms. Elena Rossi, will you have dinner with me after your shift? Where? You choose. No guards at the table. They will be outside. Outside the restaurant. Across the street. Half a block. That is reckless. That is my condition. He released a long breath. Half a block. Then yes. Rafael's silence changed. She had learned its textures during the past week. There was the hard silence that made captains reconsider lies, the strategic silence that gathered information, and the private one that held more feeling than he trusted words to carry. This was the private one. 6 o'clock, she said. Your shift ends at 5. I need time to become mysterious. You managed it in a green hostess dress. He touched her face. That sounded like flattery. I have been practicing. Their first dinner took place at a small Dominican cafe chosen by Elena because nobody there cared who Rafael Bellandi was. The owner called him handsome, told him he was too thin, and served him stewed chicken before he ordered. Rafael accepted all 3 judgments. He wore a charcoal suit instead of black, though 2 men in dark coats waited half a block away exactly as promised. Elena wore a blue dress with a soft square neckline and silver earrings that brushed her jaw. They did not discuss Sergio for the first hour. Instead, Rafael told her he hated opera, loved old boxing broadcasts, and secretly paid Carlos medical bills because the older man would refuse direct help. Elena told him she collected terrible ceramic dogs, had once broken a date's nose when he grabbed her cane, and listened to romance audiobooks while organizing reservation cards. Romance? He asked. Do not sound surprised. What kind? The kind where dangerous men learn manners. That is very specific. It is an underserved genre. He laughed. After dinner, they walked 3 blocks through warm evening air, and Rafael matched her pace without crowding the cane. When the sidewalk narrowed, he asked whether she wanted his arm. She took it, and at her apartment entrance, neither moved away. May I kiss you? He asked. Elena touched the front of his jacket, finding the edge of his lapel. His heartbeat was controlled but fast beneath her palm. You may. Rafael kissed her as carefully as he had held her hand in the dark restaurant. Care did not make the kiss weak. It made every movement intentional. He waited when she inhaled, followed when she pulled him closer, and touched her waist only after her hand guided his there. The dangerous patience of him made heat move from her mouth to the base of her spine. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers. I have wanted to do that since you stepped on his boot, he said. That is a strange preference. You ordered an armed stranger not to move, then corrected my security chief. So competence is attractive. On you, devastating. Elena kissed him again. Chapter 9. Romance did not make Rafael easy. He remained controlling by instinct, suspicious by training, and capable of making reasonable suggestions sound like commands. Elena remained impatient with arrogance, allergic to pity, and unwilling to let affection erase practical boundaries. They argued, and they also learned. When Rafael sent a driver without asking, Elena dismissed the car, and the next time, he called first. When Elena walked home during another storm without telling anyone, Rafael did not surround her with guards. He asked why she had not called, listened to the answer, and helped her create a safety plan that belonged to both of them. When he woke from the old ambush dream and stood at her window counting exits, she did not tell him he was safe. She placed his hand against the glass and asked what he heard. He named the radiator, a passing bus, her ceramic dog rattling on the shelf, and Elena breathing beside him. Only then did he return to bed. At Bellandi's, the staff adopted the brass heel rule with renewed enthusiasm, and Rosa added tacks to her kitchen clogs simply to annoy Rafael. Every morning, she marched past his table until he threatened to confiscate her shoes. Elena's consultation expanded into a permanent operations role, and she negotiated the title herself. Director of Guest Operations and Access sounded formal enough for Tomas, practical enough for Rosa, and broad enough for Elena to redesign routes, contracts, emergency procedures, and staff training. She kept one hostess shift each week because she liked welcoming people and because no promotion should require pretending the work that built her was beneath her. Rafael offered her an office, and she chose the small room beside the coat desk. The private suite upstairs is larger, he said. This one is where the work happens. It faces a brick wall. That sounds like a visual complaint. He surrendered. 3 months after the truce supper, the family council met at Bellandi's to approve Elena's new security system. 2 older captains objected to an operations director attending. Rafael waited, and Elena answered them herself. She explained the layered sound routes, tactile staff badges, independent camera backups, and rule requiring every security change to receive 2 signatures. She also explained that no hostess, dishwasher, maid, or delivery worker could be excluded from reporting a threat because of rank. Service workers see the parts of a room powerful men ignore, she said. Your system failed because it trained them to stay quiet. The council approved every measure, and afterward, one captain asked Rafael whether Elena's influence made him softer. Rafael's answer traveled through the restaurant before Elena reached the table. Listening did not make me soft, he said. It made me harder to betray. Then he turned toward her. Dinner? Elena made him wait 2 seconds, then said, yes. He had learned patience. She had learned that being wanted by a powerful man did not have to mean being absorbed into his life. Rafael made room for her work, her anger, her cousin, her terrible ceramic dogs, and every independent choice that had existed before him. His devotion was possessive only in one direction, and he guarded the space around her freedom. 6 months after Elena stepped on Gavin's boot, Rafael brought her to Bellandi's before opening. The restaurant smelled of bread, coffee, and furniture polish, and morning traffic moved outside, while the empty dining room held the quiet they had learned together. Elena heard him approach from the kitchen. Click. Step. Click. Step. She turned toward him. What did you do to your shoes? Rafael stopped in front of the hostess stand, then said, 2 brass tacks in each heel. You are not an inner guard. No. Your shoes were expensive. Painfully. She folded her arms. Why? His answer came without performance. Because I never want you to wonder whether I am coming toward you. The words found a place in her that grander declarations might have missed. Elena reached for him, and Rafael placed his hand in hers, then waited while she traced the familiar callus near his thumb. That is absurdly romantic, she said. I was advised dangerous men should learn manners. Who gave you that advice? A woman with a violent cane and questionable ceramic taste. Reliable source. He drew one breath, then said, I have another question. Elena felt his hand shift, not toward a ring box or a dramatic gesture, but around her fingers. Ask. The apartment above the bakery is empty. That is not a question. I know. You are nervous. I command 300 men. None of them can reject you. He exhaled. Exactly. Elena waited. Would you consider choosing a home with me? Rafael asked. Not my house. Not yours. Ours. You choose the neighborhood, the locks, the furniture, and how many ugly dogs are permitted. Ceramic dogs. I was trying to be kind. She smiled, then asked, how many guards? None inside. 2 outside, negotiated by distance. Whose name is on the lease? Both. Who chooses the kitchen? Rosa, apparently. She has already threatened me. Elena laughed, and Rafael's grip warmed around hers. You asked her before me? I asked whether the bakery upstairs was quiet. And? She said it would be after she replaced the mixer. Elena considered the life inside his question. It was not a mansion offered as rescue, and it was not a command disguised as luxury. Rafael was asking her to build neutral ground with him, where neither life swallowed the other. 1-year lease, she said. He went still, then asked, is that yes? With a 6-month review. You negotiate romance like a labor contract. That is why it may survive. Elena. Yes, Rafael. I will choose a home with you. He kissed her in the empty restaurant while brass tacks waited beneath his heels. Epilogue. 1 year later, Bellandi's hosted another family supper. The restaurant had changed without losing itself. The red booths remained mismatched, Rosa still refused to replace the noisy order wheel, and the espresso machine continued hissing whenever anyone demanded too much from it. New tactile signs marked every service route, the side corridor stayed clear, and every inner guard announced his presence with brass heels. Elena stood at the hostess desk in a dark green dress. Her title was Director of Operations, but Sunday supper still belonged to her. Rafael entered through the front door. His black overcoat carried the cold evening air, and Nico and 2 guards followed, their steps distinct. Wealthy guests turned toward the Mafia Boss, but Rafael's attention went immediately to Elena. It always did. He crossed the restaurant. Click. Step. Click. Step. The sound no longer warned her of danger, and it announced a choice. Rafael stopped on the other side of the desk. Am I on the list? Name? Rafael Bellandi. Occupation? Dangerous man with improved manners. Reservation for? The rest of my life, if the hostess approves. Elena reached across the desk and adjusted his tie, then said, she approves dinner. And afterward? Ask after dessert. He smiled, bent, and kissed her before the entire family. Nobody laughed at the blind hostess now. Nobody called her brave when they meant useful. They called her Elena, because Rafael had required respect once, and because she had earned something stronger every day after that. Near the coat room, 2 brass heel tacks rested inside a small glass case. Beneath them, a plain card carried the rule Elena had written for every Bellandi property. No person who enters with honest purpose should need to hide their steps. The rule applied equally to guards, captains, family, and the mafia boss himself. It also described the love Elena and Rafael had built, and he never approached her in silence. She never made herself smaller to keep him comfortable, and between them, power learned to announce itself, ask permission, and wait for an answer. And whenever Rafael crossed Bellandi's crowded floor, Elena heard the two bright notes beneath his heels and knew exactly who was coming toward her.